You are listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Proteum Machining, and this week I'm happy to welcome back Chris Zappettini, my catch-up co-host, as always. How's it going, Chris?
Good. Living the dream. I'm in Massachusetts, so that's nice.
Yeah, you're back on the East Coast again?
Yeah. Yep. Doing a giant project in Delaware. It's been kind of kicking my ass a little bit, but you know, we started with the hardest part by far, and we have other issues, but we'll get into that.
So yeah, let's get the update since the last time you're on. I don't know if this is the only job you've been on since the last time, but you were starting to travel more. You were starting to be on the East Coast a little more.
What?
Anything else fun happening?
I think I drove. Oh no, this was like in the middle of my traveling. Was the last time that we chatted. And then I flew. Oh, yeah. So I flew back. Like after I saw you, the next day I flew to Salt Lake and I went and saw a Selway customer to help them out. And really it ultimately ended up in like getting Dave from Carbide Cutting Tools involved to get them like a better tool. Because the tool that they had, like when they would cut, it was a form tool from another company, and it just didn't work. Like it cut two features at the same time, but it cut them in a way like they were one feature was big and the other one was small, so you just could not dial it in correctly. And so Dave got these guys, which I didn't end up, I just helped facilitate the tool coming in, and actually they haven't followed up with me. I'm assuming it's fine because I haven't heard anything, but he gave us two tools, one that cut the main feature that allowed us to like come back and clean up, like control the two features separately, and then one that cut them both. And yeah, I don't know where that's at. And then I flew to Boston, and then I started this Delaware project. And I've been on this Delaware project, for the last like month, basically. And it's mostly like I have like a pile of good parts at this point, and like we're making good parts, but sometimes they come out bad because the material's so fucked up. I showed you
Send
like,
me that video.
It is some of like the worst. Like it cuts really nice once it's like it's just so out of round when it starts. It's like because it's bent, the bar is bent from heat treating. Like it's 4140. They heat treated it and to get it harder, but the place that heat treated it couldn't hang it.
I was going to say I've never seen raw stock that's heat treated bow that badly. Like I've seen final parts for sure, but like the bar should still have all of its normal stresses. So like clearly they rested it on something that cooled it abnormally.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Cause they were like when you hear it, it's like, well, how bad could it be? And it's like so bad that we have to cut the bars in half because they won't feed through the spindle liner.
Yeah, it was like this is not joking, a literal banana. Like you sent it to me and you could see both ends of it kind of ran true. And then the center was like, jumping rope over the center line of your
that's exactly, lathe. Dude. And some of the first pieces, like it's fucking my true positions up. You can see like, as you get like further away from the spindle, like some of the, like it's like blowing out. And when it transfers and does the cutoff, like depending on the bar, the machine shakes pretty violently. And like W250 is like a massive machine. It's huge. And yeah, but that being said, like we have a really secure process. Like this was something that like wasn't necessarily discussed but they're very picky about burrs. And so it's down to like, they're like we're making good parts, but they're like, we're not starting a run until there's 0 burrs on this part. Like we don't want to touch this thing at all, which is like, okay. So I make it like, I make parts, they check them, they're like, yeah, this is good, but this needs to be fixed. So we have like, at this point we have a lollipop tool on the turret to get all the milling features, and then like just to deburr and like deburr the inside. There's so much code that I have to like run the deburring off of, because it's 3D. I have to run the deburring off of card. No. There's just not enough memory in the machine. And sometimes like there's like, if you're doing, I guess like a little warning to people that want to do like gun stuff or whatever, make sure to get all your options from, and you have Fanic machines, like get all your options before you start cutting anything, because Fanic gets really weird about installing options on site if it is for guns or defense or anything like that. Like sometimes they will literally flat out refuse to do it at all, which is problematic, you know, if you need it. And so luckily, like the Nakamura, you can run off the hard drive of the machine. Like off of the Windows side, you can just like set up a folder and like map that to the memory card as the memory card.
Oh,
and
that's good then.
And then, yeah, it's pretty neat. So, and then you use like a weird one, which is like they use M200 to do, it's normally M198, but on a lathe, M198 is a weight code, so that doesn't work. But it's good. The parts, like, I mean, it's really interesting to like cut apart and nothing changed, but it's like all the true positions are like way wonky because this bar is wonkier, or everything's good about the part except for this one feature because it is so out of round that it didn't clean up.
How much material that they already have? Like, I'm hoping
none.
So like, are you burning through whatever they had so they can actually find a good heat treater?
Yeah, they're in the process. They are in the process of getting another heat treater now. And that was the other thing, was they're like, these are supposed to be first article parts, you know, for their customer. And they're like, oh, we don't even know if we have the heat treat cert, because these are all like mil spec stuff. It's all mil spec stuff. And it's like, oh my God, like, what are we doing here?
You should have them look at, I don't know if TW sells 4140, but we used TW at my last job for some like custom heat treat 17.4 that then they tray panned out for us, and like it came in as donuts. So like they're willing to do the work if you're buying enough material. So it might be worth bringing up something like that.
Yeah, I'll ask him, because I mean, yeah, it's been just like such a wonky like project, because it's like, if I felt like we've been making good parts for like 2 weeks, but they're like, it's almost there. Like, okay. And that's okay. There's still like 9 more parts to go, so it should be fine. This is like above and beyond like the most difficult one. Like the rest are kind of gravy, relatively speaking. It's just like on the WT100, they're mostly just like Swiss parts, like round shit with like a handful of like fairly wide open tolerances and like a few mill features. There's only like one part on that machine that's like kind of crazy. It just has like a bunch of like internal features. But no, and then outside I've been selling like crazy. Like it's like lining up work for after this has been pretty good. Like I have a project still the project in Arizona, the newer project, the one that's in North Phoenix, and which they haven't gotten me designs yet, which is pretty interesting. So they just ordered, the machine shows up like next week, I think. And they like just ordered like tombstones and stuff. So awesome. They're like, when are you coming? And I was like, I don't know.
Well, you told me it was like July or something, right?
That's what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but at this point, I don't know, you know? He's like, when? It's like, I haven't done anything because you haven't given me designs yet. They've paid me some, you know, like, but I don't have anything to do as of right now.
Right.
So that one's still ongoing, which is fine. That's like automotive stuff. So it's like cake, like, you know, it's like positional tolerances and like tight tolerance holes, but basically, reamers or boring heads or whatever.
If it's not engine and internals, most automotive stuff is like fairly loose. Yeah, it's like, does it fit and does it look okay? Cool.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's just like, it just needs to like look mostly good and like hold a rod. And there's a project coming up like that I got from Selway that's doing like knife handles at a G10 on like on a mini mill, or not a mini mill, on a Haas, a DT2 or whatever. And so just getting like the Swarf Unlimited like filtration stuff so that it doesn't like get too disgusting, but it's going to get disgusting. I mean, you're making dust, right. And the weirdest one about that is he has like no models, so we have to like do part of the project. This was written in like this. We did the project knowing this, which is like this is one that we're mostly going to do on site because he wants to also like, we have to like model the parts and make them.
Right. So he's got like napkin sketches and ideas, and you're taking it from there to like production.
Or like somebody has made something, like I have a box of handles down underneath the desk here. And I was like, well, I can draw something and I can like design a plate around it, but if you don't like it, then we're fucking hosed, and we just spent all this money. So I was like, probably what we're going to do is we're going to do this entirely on your site. He really wants to learn how to do Fusion. So that's part of it too. That's part of the project, is like going through the whole process so that he can like eventually just do this himself. And like, we'll buy a vise and soft jaws, so we're not building plates off of nothing, and like make it and like be like, does this feel good, yes or no, and then make adjustments from there. So it's a little bit different, but should be fun. I mean, that's another one where it's like nothing matters. It's just all looks and like feel, and it's fun. That's a fun one,
definitely.
And then got one doing like Harley transmission cases in California. And
was this the same place that you helped out last time you were out there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I guess like they're like kind of well known. I was talking to my buddy who's like into Harleys, and he's like, "Are you talking about Jim's Speed Shop?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, okay." Like I don't fucking know.
Right.
But they were like, "Oh, we made transmissions like from scratch, like the whole thing for Harley before they had their own 6-speed." And it's like, oh shit, that's pretty dope.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I don't know, got a little one in Idaho. I've been doing a lot of work for this company in Pennsylvania. I was just with them on Friday. I went to go see them. That's the one I was like, there's a question that I kind of want to transition into now that John Mahon, big 5-axis guy, it texted me this morning, which is like the pros and cons of like consulting versus shop life. And the two projects that I've been working on like are the biggest cons of doing this type of work, because the pro is obvious. It's like freedom and like kind of getting to see a lot of stuff and work on a lot of stuff and whatever. The cons are mostly just like you are going to deal with people who don't know anything a lot of the time. And that is hard. Like in Arizona, for the people I did the Pearson pallets for, they somehow like ripped out the fucking helicoils on. And so we needed to go to like key inserts, just like step it up to like a more aggressive insert. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I bought the inserts. I bought the tools to cut it. Like I was like, I can't be there, but I can get everything there and give you a program, and then you can run it. You just need to like do this. And the guy that I talked to, what I realized like later was I was talking to the wrong person, because he's like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. Like he's like, I ripped all the helicoils out. I did this, I did that. And you're like, okay. And he's like, but they have me working on another project, so we'll come back to it. And I was like, cool, just let me know. And then I hit him up and he's like, nope, still not ready. Like, it's okay. And then the owner calls me and he's like, what the fuck is going on? We're so far behind. And I'm like, I've been trying to get this done for like 2 weeks.
You're like, I'm ready. Like
we can, like, I'm ready to go, man. And then I started talking to somebody else and then it got done very quickly. But I was like, and the guy who I was talking to called me and was like, hey, we're really far behind. And I'm like, I know, I talked to the owner. Right. Like, I'm aware now. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And
I would imagine not being on site, you miss all of those side conversations you have in a normal business where, you know, it might not be flowed down in a memo from the top, but you get kind of a picture of like, oh, these are running behind or these are low on stock or.
Yes. And like, as is something like, oh, and then the other part to wrap that up was the guy who was on the shop floor who was like, I got all the helicoils out. And then the dude who ended up running it, who's their engineer, was like, hey, so can I cut through the helicoils? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, John told me they were gone. And he's like, nope, he took one out. And I'm like, cool. And he's like, they're like really fucked up. He's like, it's hard to get them out of here. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, I wish. And then this is the other con, which is if a company has, which is like a kind of a lot of like smaller shops or whatever, like not smaller shops, I would say like mid-size / large shops. Like if those companies have bad internal communication, their external communication is even worse. So like the amount that I have to be on top of my customers to have them give me information to be able to appropriately help them is kind of insane. It's like, I want to help you. I'm trying so hard. Like, can you please just work with me here so that we can get this done? And that is such a weird thing. Like, you would assume that if you're paying somebody a lot of money that they would communicate effectively with you, but it just like isn't the case.
I would imagine too that to go along with this, that you become the very easy scapegoat in addition to all this. So like, you know, I've always noticed at a job, whenever somebody leaves, they're immediately at fault for everything that goes wrong for the next like year and a half. And you're getting paid a lot of money and off site. And so of course it's Zap's problem.
Yeah. And so that kind of sucks, you know, but, and then what was the other one? Which is the other guys are helpful, but they don't know how to help me, which is the guys in Pennsylvania who I'm programming for. And I gave them a program and they're like, okay. And I told them where the home location was. And they're like, well, we need probing. And it's like, right. But you need to set the first home location like right away. And they're like, we can't do that. Like, what do you mean? They're like, I don't know how to use the probe. This is where I showed you, I'm like, well, what is an existing home location? And he sends me the picture of like the tool at Z0, just like above the part. And he's like, that's where it is. And it's like, I don't know what that even means. Like,
I just love that he sent you a picture of the inside of the machine to give you the home location.
Yeah.
You're not a DRO. Like you can't infer that from the picture.
He gave me that and then like a picture of like just the coordinates, you know, which is like, okay, that's closer. And then I see the part that's running and then they had given me a program for that. And so I can see, okay, X0, Y0 center of the vise and Z0 center of the bore of that part. And so I'm like, can you tell me what the distance between the center of the bore and the top of the jaws are? And he's like, yes. And so he gives me that. And then I'm like, okay, what is the next available work offset on the machine? And he's like, G54 through 59 are full. And it's like, okay. He's like, P4 is open. Perfect. So I have to like type out what to tell him to put in there to make it the center. And which is funny. And then give them the program that does the probing. And I'm like, Oh God, I hope this works.
I was gonna say that sounds so nerve-wracking.
It worked. It worked great. Like, I mean, that's like I was having some like weird issues with like Fusion and Camplete that I can't get my I can't get other people to replicate. So like something on my end is fucked up where when I go from Fusion to Camplete, it creates a new tool like inside of Camplete and then shifts all my tools down one.
Oh, you were saying that
in the
that
group
makes
chat.
more sense now because I could not figure out how that was possible when we first were talking about it.
I didn't know that's what it was doing until Thursday when I like look in and I'm like, and I'm talking to this guy at Methods who's basically the Camplete guy. He's like Camplete guy now. And I was like, this is on a robo drill. So I was hitting him up because like he is responsible. I'm like, I think this is on my side, but I don't know like what is causing this to happen. And he's like, it's not happening for me. So I don't know. I'm like, well, okay. Well, I got it mostly to work. And then that happened. The other weird thing was that it went to tool center instead of tool tip. Which was mostly fine, except for the ball and mill, like went like that. They showed me the cut and I'll send you a picture of that, but it was like, it was really blasting through. And he's like, it cut really deep. It looks good, but it cut really deep. And I was like, oh, 1 second. I fixed that up for him, but that was a weird one when it's like the tool shifting down is bizarre because that has like, it's roughing with the probe and it's like finishing with a drill.
I'm glad you caught that. Jeez.
Yeah. I was like, well, that's like because you simulate. That's like the other part of it. It simulates. So all the tool paths are correct. It's just like they're wrong. So it shows you like a tool that's way too big doing a slot on the inside, and it's like, hey, this is colliding with the part, and it's
so you
like,
just have 10,000 collisions when you try to simulate or something.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's really fucked up. And I like did not like that at all. But that was another like weird one where like these guys, you're just kind of, which is we eventually got it, but the communication is like, it's bizarre, and you just have to be so infinitely patient to like, it's like when they're talking like that, this kind of, I mean, it just all goes back to communication because you're like, how do I communicate what I need to this person? You know, like
when are you doing this all over email?
This is text, phone call, whatever.
Which is the worst because it's delayed. Like I'm dealing with this with Hermla. Like their support is fantastic, but I'm starting to talk to my salesman about just having an apps guy out for a day or two. Yeah. Because I have all these little things that I want to learn to do better in the control. And support is, super quick to respond, but that's still a half hour, 45-minute turnaround. So having a conversation, it's not a conversation. It's this back and forth. It's like posting on an old school like message board for car troubles. Mm-hmm. I will get an answer, but I want to solve it right now. Like I'm in the middle of a part right now. Yeah. And the other, like, the stressful thing for me at the moment is like when I'm troubleshooting this, I'm also in front of and like cutting parts and getting this other project going. So it's like, what do we do here? And that's why, well, I want to wrap this up, but like, so pros, I think the pros of the consulting are like being able, like traveling is nice, though right now I'm traveling not so much, and that's better. Like my brain is a lot less fuzzy. I am working a lot, but that's mostly because it's just me and I'm taking on a lot of work. That's like little work, but it should be, it's whatever. But like traveling is nice. Going into a lot of other shops and seeing how people do things is very interesting. And there's another interesting aspect of that is like you see people doing like very interesting like fixturing, and it's like, oh, that's cool. And it's like, have you ever thought about like welding that instead of like machining it so that you don't have to like you have
welders here and you could like weld this up instead and like to finish machine certain aspects of it. And then being able to like blow, like, you know, like I saw this somewhere and you're doing something similar. What do you think? And then you just see those light bulbs go off and like, that's cool. And that's fun. And like being able to like help all kinds of people is a lot of fun. And then, you know, like working on all kinds of different machines and different processes and whatever is really cool. Like the cons are, it's just like I don't know. It is like it's stable in a sense, you know, like, but because you're always working on something else, like it is kind of quick turnover. And there are cases where like, you're just not, once you're done, that's it. Like you don't see it through. Like you gave me what I needed. Goodbye. And that's it. And you're like, okay. And sometimes it is nice, you know, to see things like how they progress, but also that's not what you're paid to do.
I'd say that that's a similar con to job shopping as well, where I said, you know, people ask me all the time, oh, what does that part do? I don't know.
Yeah. Fuck if I know.
It's numbers. Yeah. It's a part number. Like that's what I got.
Right.
And very rarely it's super cool when engineers I work with send me pictures of complete things. Mm-hmm. You know, hey, this is where your parts went and this is what it looks like assembled. Right. Super cool. But yeah, I think that's probably a commonality between both sides of it.
Yeah. And I mean, like I could speak to the pros of shop life, I suppose, but you probably have a better idea of this, you know, which is like,
for me, it's a lot of the similar stuff.
Yeah.
I new stuff all the time. I'm not doing production work. I see, you know, between 5 and 20 new part numbers a week.
Yeah.
And I think that that's great because it keeps me on my toes, keeps me developing my skills, and more importantly, keeps my ADHD brain from getting bored with stuff. So
yeah, for sure. And I think there's probably also like the stability of going into like the same place every day, working on the same machines all the time. Like it allows you to get like more hyper focused on the skills that you're honing, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Where
you become a subject matter expert on your machines for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I hope that answered that question.
I think so. So anything else going on update wise?
I kind of like hired 2 people ish, both part-time. One, like they're in like very quick succession, not really looking to hire somebody, but I had a friend of mine who I've known for like 10 years or whatever hit me up and she was like, I'm looking for like part-time work, whatever, like 10 or 15 hours a week just to like do like a little extra cash, whatever. And she's like the assistant to the store manager at a Fry's grocery store in like North Phoenix or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. So like what I need help with, is just like keeping me on track. Just like yelling at me and pinging me would be very nice. And she's like, yeah, I could do that. I'd basically do that all day, every day. And, and I was like, cool. So we got that going on. And then a buddy of mine hit me up. He lives in Philadelphia, and I hit him up and I was like, hey, are we on you want to do dinner on Friday? And he's like, oh, I just lost my job, so I'm on the hunt and whatever. And I was like, well, let me buy you dinner and whatever. And we were chatting about like the jobs that I was like, what do you do and what are you looking for? And this was like very funny because I was at like, when he told me what he wanted to do, I changed the conversation to how it could help me, but he didn't clue in on that right away. He thought I was prodding deeper to see if I could be more helpful in finding him a job. But he's like, yeah, I really like the back end work of like, you know, project management and like invoicing and purchasing and all this other bullshit. And I was like, oh, okay. And
oh
then
man, I hate those things.
and, well, I told him that too. I was like, I hate those and I kind of suck at it. And like, just because it takes up, it's such a churn for me to be like selling and doing the project at the customer and invoicing and purchasing and whatever. It's just like,
right. You're bouncing from the business owner to the technician to the salesman role, very
and
quickly.
It's like, fuck. And so we transitioned to like a phone call and I was like, so this is what I can do. And he's like, wait, are you offering me a job right now? It's like, yeah, what did you think we were talking about? And so he's going to start working for me in like a couple weeks. He wanted to take like a couple weeks to himself, but he was like also very excited because when we had dinner, or I was talking to him more about what we were doing, and he's like, oh, that's exactly what I'm good at. He's like, I can work on like making sure that the invoices go out on time, making sure that the contracts are better, like setting up like DocuSign and all this other bullshit. And I was like, cool, perfect. I don't want to do that at all. And yeah, and he's hyped. I'm hyped because I think in like the next 3-ish months, I would like to hire another engineer, and thinking about when I hired somebody before, and how like disastrous that was. And it was mostly disastrous because I didn't know where I really needed the help. You think like, oh, I'm doing this type of work. I need another person like me to help me do all this work, which was kind of true. But when I hired like the other two guys, that was really the mistake. Cause the person that should have been hired like in between them was somebody like my buddy Hirsch, who does like admin work,
right?
To make sure
Someone
that we
to
have
manage
like
stuff.
Yeah. And like manage the back end systems, whatever, ping, and like make sure things are just like moving, handle like some like customer interfaces and whatever, And that's where I'm thinking like what I've been thinking about now, because I've been talking to like somebody about hiring them, as an engineer, and where our time and like what my timeline is and what his timeline is. And thinking about that more, it's like, oh, I should probably dial in my processes and like how everything flows a lot better so that it's not as disastrous, and like build the system, but also like I just don't have time for it right now. I mean, I probably do, but I'd rather spend my time. I'm making enough money right now that I can pay bills and have a little cash to throw at my buddy to help me do this. And so I can focus on the shit that I'm good at, which is like doing the work and selling. And he could help me build the back end stuff with input from me, and that's like, and so when I do hire an engineer in a couple months, it is a less hectic transition than it was previously. And we should be able to like hit the ground running for engineering type stuff, because we're not worried about like getting the hardest thing before was like I had hired people to do work that I had already sold, but all the information was in my head. So we had to like extract it out
right
very, very quickly, because they were taking over projects that were already in motion. And that was stressful for everybody, and I don't want to do that again. I don't want to stress anybody out. I'm already so stressed.
Right. No, and I've seen that even just between Brad and I, where like I do a large majority of the quoting, and he'll not know what was going through my head and like order
right
material that was very different than what I expected. And then, tell me, oh, this was very difficult. Why did you quote it this way? I was like, I didn't quote it the way that you like. The other day, I think I was recording an episode, or I had a meeting in the morning or something. Oh, I went to the dentist. That's what it was. And I get out of the dentist and I look and I have a notification from Midwest Aluminum and Steel or whatever it's called. And it was 10/18 for this order. And I texted them immediately. I was like, oh, I planned on just buying the ground plate from McMaster. That's mild steel, and just doing it out of that because it's going to be here tomorrow. And this is a quick turn order. And he was like, oh, shoot. Okay, sorry. And so we had to, we canceled it. It wasn't a big deal because Midwest takes like a week or two to even cut your material. But it was one of those things that I need to find a better way to communicate that kind of stuff to him.
Can you so how does that flow for you currently? Like, because you use paperless and you quote the parts, and then once you have it, does he go to do you guys both go to paperless at that point, or is there like a separate system?
No, paperless is kind of the single source of truth right now, but it just says the material. It doesn't say, if I haven't already ordered it, or I just happen to remember to like copy and paste the McMaster link,
right?
He doesn't know. It wasn't. Yeah. It was a completely honest mistake. So it's something that we need to kind of sort out. There's a lot of little things with paperless lately that have been kind of bugging me.
Right.
Like the other thing that has been kind of screwing us is in paperless, you're only allowed to quote a lead time in days. You can't quote like a date when things are due. And so very often, it doesn't matter if my customer accepts it tonight or tomorrow, they still expect it on the 17th or whatever.
Right.
But in paperless, that's a 5-day lead time. So tonight means 5 days from now, and tomorrow means 5 days from then. And so like very often the ships on date in paperless will be inaccurate because of that. And
that's fascinating.
It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, cool, sure, some shops can work on a deadline that is just a number of business days, but guess what? My customers don't care. They're paying for it to be there at a certain date because they need it for testing or something. So what I've started to have to do is in the quote notes, put ships on whatever. And that way, no matter when it is accepted, we can go to the notes and we see the right ship date.
Are there notes you can put in there that are only you facing?
Yeah. There's internal notes and then quote notes that go on the quote to the customer.
Nice.
Still frustrating though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I was thinking more of the internal notes side for like the
material and stuff,
the material and shit like that, and like how you expected to hold it or whatever.
Yeah, I think we need to get a little better about that. I think that, very often it doesn't come up as a problem because I have McMaster up while I'm quoting. I'm just adding things to cart, and then it's already in the cart ready to purchase the next day if they accept. But there is sometimes where I didn't do that and it just escapes us. So
and then there's miscommunication.
Yeah. And everything got canceled and ordered correctly, and it was all good. But it was one of those soft red flags that's like, hey, this wasn't a problem this time, but it might bite you in the ass sometime in the future here. Because if he had bought pre-cut stock that we couldn't return and they happened to be on top of it and they were like, oh, we actually shipped it early.
Yeah.
In this case, it would have been a couple $100, but you start getting into 17.4 or anything like that, it could have been a real expensive mistake.
Or if they're like, we started, you can't return it, but it's going to take forever to get there. And you're like, fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we just are out money. So, yeah. The other fun thing, just to pick on paperless a little more.
Hell yeah.
They did an update this last week and it just logs me out every single day now.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been sharing that. You're like, what a good way to start the day.
Yeah. And it's every single day. One day, it was twice in one day. And it's so frustrating because everything is 2-factor authentication too. So I got to pull out my phone and get my code and blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
you're like, what the fuck, guys?
I guess I can go through my updates for the last couple weeks.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
We've been kicking butt, doing a ton of work. Definitely starting to feel a little more comfortable on the Hermla, adding more holders so I can keep more things set up and swap them out easier. Doing a lot more parts on it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Some of the stuff you showed me is like tight.
Yeah.
Tight.
It's pretty cool. I'm getting a little quicker on the programming side. There's still some stuff that is frustrating from time to time, but for the most part, I'm starting to feel
frustrating. How? Like frustrating with Fusion or frustrating on the Hermla or where?
All of the above.
Okay.
So like I'm dealing with Hermla has their own accuracy smoothing cycle called cycle 326, and then the stock Heidenhain one is 32. And when I had DSI build my post, I was like, oh no, I want 326. The manual says that this is the one to use because it incorporates 32. But in talking with other owners, it sounds like most people just use 32 with better results. So this is another one of those questions that I want to have an apps guy there to talk about. I want like somebody to look over my shoulder, look at posted code with me, see the things that I don't know. The unknown unknowns is what's biting me in the ass, I think.
Yeah.
So, dealing with those cycles in addition to full 5-axis surfacing, like sometimes I get great results, sometimes they look terrible. And I'm kind of trying to figure out, is that a tolerance in fusion? Is that a tolerance in the cycle? Is that a hidden Hermla tolerance setting that I'm missing? It's very strange for me to be in this situation. I've felt very confident and competent in dealing with machine tools and machine tool parameter changes for so long that to be so locked out and so unsure of where things are in a control is a little unnerving for me.
Right. The imposter syndrome sets in and you're like, was I ever good at this?
Right, exactly. I was banging my head against the wall on this one part it was so dumb. So this part, the last time I ran it on the 4th and then like 2 or 3 ops in the other brothers. And I had used this extended reach 530 seconds, I think, to hit this deep corner. And I was like, oh, well, I don't need to set that up. I've got a 6mm ball in the magazine already. I'll just surface that full 5 and call it a day. And I spent, to save 5 minutes setting up a tool and putting it in the thing, I spent 6 or 7 hours trying to dial in this like 5-axis tool path, because it was a 45-minute tool path or something like that, or a 30-minute tool path. Sure. And the part was a 30 or 45-minute part. And so I had to run the whole part to get one out to look at it. And I blew through like 6 hours worth of stuff, and then finally ended up just switching back to a 2D contour and doing it from a couple different angles, 3+2 positionally, and still didn't have to set that tool. But it was so frustrating. It was definitely one of those like diminishing return kind of things. And I didn't learn anything either. Like that was the worst part. Is I walked away. I was like, I don't know what I did wrong.
Yeah, I didn't move the ball forward. Yeah, and I wasted a bunch of time.
Exactly.
Like, tight.
Yeah,
and went back to where I was.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Zero gained, 7 hours lost.
Right. But then sometimes I'll do full 5-axis surfacing with a different tool path, different tool. And it looks fantastic.
And it just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'll have to have somebody out that kind of understands this architecture more, like someone who is based in Heidenhain, understands where to look. Because you or me, if we were on a Fanuc based style system, a Brother, a Fanuc, a Haas, or whatever, you kind of know where to look.
Yes. Yeah.
And what parameters might affect that. And you like I could be fairly quick about diagnosing and checking a few things, where with Heidenhain, I don't know what I don't know at this point. So but let's see. Besides that, we got the new air dryer in. We got the new filter for the CMM. This all stemmed. I put it in my LinkedIn post. Like I feel like owning a business is just finding new things to stress about and then getting rid of that stress. Yes. And this all happened because one day a month ago, I forgot to turn on the air dryer. And we just got so much water in the system. And thankfully I wasn't running the Hermla that day. So I just shut down that whole side of the loop. And it was just very frustrating. And I was like, okay, we kind of need some filtering in addition to air drying on the system just in case. Right. And I found these ones from Dry Tech that have a 1 micron incoming filter from the tank and then a 0.1 parts per million filter on the output.
Hell so
it should take care of any water and oil.
Yeah.
And then we added like a higher end tsunami filter to the CMM because even with it had filters that came with it, just some random, I don't remember what the brand is, but like it would have oil on the aluminum ways fairly frequently, like where I have to go in and clean them off. And I think that's a problem with whatever comes with them standard. Cause even at my last job, we had a bunch of those and it was the same thing. Like once a week I would go and grab some alcohol, wet up a lint free towel and like wipe them all down. So fingers crossed that solves this problem.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Tight. Hell yeah.
But yeah, besides that, that's business as usual. Like we're
just crushing.
Yeah. Oh, I want to add, I think I can't remember if I talked about it last time we spoke, but I really am going to add through spindle air to the Hermla.
Yes.
Because that's, I think, the only big miss in their package deal for the performance line ones.
Right.
Because every time you use a through spindle coolant tool, the valve for through spindle coolant is like up in the spindle. So you still have like a foot of tube full of coolant. And so you go to change tools and it's that drum and like it pulls up out of it and just spits coolant everywhere. And so like I'll be pulling tools out of the carousel to replace them and I'll dump coolant on myself because I'm not paying attention because the cup of HSK is like full, not full. It's got, I don't know, a millimeter or two worth of coolant in there.
Yeah.
And there's no way for it to drain. It's not like a steep taper tool holder where it just runs off. It is literally a cup and holds that stuff. So
that's pretty crazy, actually. It's a weird design.
It's so frustrating because like even if the tool is right next to the probe, it's just like blasting the probe, or like my master tool is getting blasted with coolant if I'm changing out a ICS tool next to it. So
I'm like, hey.
Yeah. Well, and then I got I started emailing support because I saw that there was in the Bloom settings, you can change, it's like number of seconds of blowout before measuring or something. And so I'm like messing with that. I'm messing with the cycle that does that. Support's helping me like, oh, we'll try this. And then finally they're like, oh, we looked up your serial number and you don't have through spindle air on that machine. So this is not going to work.
Yeah,
that would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get that added pretty soon here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you got it quoted, right?
I am waiting for a quote right now. I talked to my salesman on Thursday, I think, and he's gonna give me a quote. That having a apps guy out for a day or two, and then should be. I mean, the thing is like, are they complaints? Yeah. Is that machine just absolutely printing money also?
Right.
Totally. So
yeah. I feel like in both of our situations when we're complaining about stuff, it's not like it's complaining because we're like dead in the water. It's just like, this would make my life a lot easier. If I had this, like Camplete turn mill fucking sucks and I hate it. But because it's like only for Nakamura's and it should be perfect, but it's not. And that's like really weird and bizarre.
Well, and the stuff that it was doing was very weird. It was not, bugginess. It was like straight wrong code.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's like you're doing cross milling, which is like G719 plane. And you think that like it knows that you're doing that. It's doing all the shit to do that, but it posts out the plane incorrectly. And it's like, why? Like, how? And that fucks up your cutter comp and everything. And it's like, it's only existed for this one machine brand for like 20 years. How is this not like the most perfect software that has ever existed?
Yeah. Well, and like you're lucky that those codes being misplaced didn't result in a very bad crash. Because I think, I don't remember if I had said it on the podcast, but I broke 2 stainless roughers maybe a year or 2 ago. Because I found out the brother controls, when you hit reset, they don't reset to G17. And so I was in the middle of a tool path, and it happened to be in the lead-in in a G18 move that I had reset the thing. And then I went to rerun the tool path, and the tool path didn't call G17 because it thought it was in it. And it did this big old loop and tried to plunge this 7-flute rougher through my jaws down like 3 inches.
Yeah,
and like it went into the jaws and then errored out. And I did it twice, I think, because I looked at it. I was like, the code looks fine. I reposted the code and changed a few things. Like I got rid of my lead in like that.
Right.
Went to run it again. It did the same thing, but I caught it a little shallower that time. And then it was only after I like went and looked at current commands that I saw, oh, I'm in G18.
Right.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like the thing that was like very nerve wracking. I'm like, oh, that plane is incorrect. Like if I change this right now, is it going to do, it's like, I don't think it's going to do anything crazy, but like, I guess we'll see. And it was fine. It made the cutter comp was still weird. Like I ended up taking it out and just doing something else because it was only working in like one axis at a time, which made all my stuff like longer. My holes were like eggs, and that was weird and annoying. And part of my like that was part of my frustration with this product. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like this should be like after working in TruePath for so long and getting good with TruePath and like, oh, that shit just works. And like, I was like, oh, when I was at Methods, I was not utilizing this tool that was available to me. So, but like now that I use Camplete a lot more, I'm going to do this correctly, which is like my code out of this should be like perfect and whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. And like, I still have to like hand edit a lot of stuff and like the transfer, like the transfers in Mastercam don't like transfer into, Camplete like at all via NCI file. So that still has to be written by hand and like put into Camplete as G code. And then when you have this like weird transition from the NCI to the G code, it did like this weird move that I did waste a tool, like, cause it had finished cutting. And then in the transition between the cutting toolpath and the transfer, it just put like X, Y, Z, X0, Y, like it was Y0, Z0, X0, but like not G28. So it came up and just fucking dove, and I caught it before it like hit, like it broke the tool.
Right.
And it like made the part bad. Or well, yeah, I made the part bad. I was still able to keep cutting like to finish out the part, but like it was like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
And then
in what way would this ever be safe on any machine?
Yeah, it was so bizarre. And yeah, so I've like had this, I've been like somebody has reached out and they're like, we have Camplete, we use Mastercam, we have Camplete. And I'm like, you might be better off buying like the mill turn module for your machine instead of getting Camplete. Like I have both. Like I have Camplete and like churn mill, and I have the mill turn module for the NTMX, and the code out of the mill turn module is a lot cleaner, and it does the simulation. And like the other aspect of it that's really weird is like there's like almost no point in building tools inside of Mastercam when you're doing when you're using turn mill, because you have to build, it doesn't take any of that with you. And these are like the conversations I've been having with my customer, because he has a Yazda, a PX30i, and like 2 hab release. And on the hab release, like on TruePath, whatever you draw, fixture, like whatever you have in there, fixtures, tools, everything, it just comes in. So like you don't have to do anything. It just works. Put your fixture in the right location, and like you get really good code, like perfect code out of it. If it runs in, I've said this on here, Sean Connors said this on here, like when Camplete TruePath is dialed in, like it's perfect. It's so good. To go to this where it's like, there's no point in drawing my tools in Mastercam because you have to like build the turrets and draw them inside of Camplete, and like some of the code doesn't come in correctly, like with the NCI files work, but then like the transfer doesn't, and like you're still doing all this shit by hand. It's like this like weird, it's like, why is this called Camp? Like you should call this something else.
Right.
Give this another name. It's such like the expectations are way too high. Like my expectations are way too high. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just using this tool incorrectly, but it turns out the tool just sucks.
Well, and it's such a stark difference from the way you talk about TruePath, because TruePath, you're like, listen, the upfront setup cost is worth it. You get great code, and now you're like, nah, none of this upfront stuff works. Why am I doing this?
It is like, yeah, I was having like an existential crisis over that one for like a couple days for sure. I was like, oh, this is going to make my life so easy. And it mostly does, because it does give you like the correct like spindle codes and like the clamping and like the spindle selection and everything. Cause like that is important. And it being like, and to be fair to turn mill and everything, is that like the difference between 5-axis milling and 9-axis mill turning is like that is it's a massive leap in terms of what needs to be simulated and like how that simulation works. Cause like it's all, I was sending you like pictures, the one where like I'm drilling on the main and I'm threading on the sub and like how close those tools get to each other. But it's not the tools, it's not the things that are cutting that you're worried about hitting each other.
Right.
It's the things that aren't in the cut that you're like, oh, if that tool was hanging out any further, it would hit it. I would be like, for instance, when I have a double station holder. That holder, actually, the one that I sent you, is the one that's holding the finishing tool for the main and the threading tool for the sub. And if I went back and like 50 thou further in the cut on the main spindle, the part would hit the turning tool, the threading tool that's on the other side. And that's like, and you could simulate that, but it's just like, it is so close, but and like when you're milling, it's like, oh, that, like, is that drill that's just hanging out gonna like hit something? Right. Is this gonna hit something?
It would be like if the turret on a Speedio moved inside the machine, and I have to be worried about like tool 21 that's like up at the top and I can't even see.
Yeah. Like, is that gonna be a problem? And it's like, I don't know. And it's so funny because like the cutting and everything is like not really that bad. It's actually like, I love turning. It's so much fun because like the surface finishes are like so crispy, and it is like just wild how fast you can like rip material out of there. Like going like 15, 20 thou per rev or, and like, dude, the carbide bar that I'm using, which I think it's like, it's less than 100 thou wall. It's like a 90 thou wall, I think. And it's going like 4.5 inches deep, and the bar is sticking out like 4 3/4. And I'm looking at like what the insert asks for surface footage. And I'm like, what? That's so fast. Like, cause in steel, it's like, it's one of those things is like, are you telling me the RPM? Cause in steel, it's like 1,200 to 1,400 surface foot. And so I hit up my Sandvik guy and I'm like, is this for real? And he's like, that's really hot. Like, try like 700. And I was like, okay. And so I did. I had it already because it seemed too fast. So I went to like 600. And then when he told me 700, I was like, I'll do 650. Cause like I've been having like, that's been like the biggest frustration on this part is just that internal bore, but like do 700 surface foot, like 1,000 per rev. And it's just like, I'm trying to make it too nice too, cause like it only requires like a 125 finish. But you know, as well as I do, nobody wants that.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
If I were to like give them that, they'd be like, why are we paying you?
Right. Yeah. Did you use sandpaper to carve this out? Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're hitting like we're hitting cycle time, whatever. Like, it's good, but that was like it's such a weird, like, you're just moving so much faster on a lathe. But yeah, that was like a big aside to like, it's been such an interesting thing being out of like, I've been doing lathe stuff on like B-axis machines and whatever. This is like the first time in ZC's time of doing like a full 2 turret turnkey and like, yeah, then at all. And it's like, this is nice. I miss this. It's also like, I was expecting some of the tools like Camplete to help me more, than it is. And like I was going into it expecting that to be like to use that tool and having to switch my brain on the fly to realize like, oh, I shouldn't have had that expectation. I should have why would I?
Right.
Like
you've
to
trusted
realize that
TruePath for so long.
Yeah, my expectation was like, and that was probably like a couple days of just like fuck and like having to like switch my whole plan and everything, and also going down like a rabbit hole of like, why is my transfer not going into Mastercam? Like, or not going in? Like it posts, like I can get it, and there is an NCI file, but I can't get it into. Like Camplete won't take it, and it's like, well, I guess then we're just writing it by hand, and then we putting the code that ran on the machine into TruePath or into TurnMill, and then that simulates it. Bizarre.
That's probably why they broke it up into two softwares, because either you'd have one that you could only trust 50% of the time, or one that you can trust like 100%, and one that you can trust like 25%.
Yeah. Yeah, and my customer was realizing that too, because he's been like diving into it, and he's like, because he was having like, we had that conversation. He's like, I use Camplete all the time. It's like, it's good, and I'm like, I agree, it is good. This is different. Like it's just different.
Yeah. That's super frustrating.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got some questions. Hypercut Manufacturing asked, what are you doing to keep up with the newest advancements in manufacturing? What are some emerging industry machine shops should be looking at?
I mean, a lot of it, I guess, is like LinkedIn, Instagram, stuff like that. Like you said, kind of see like what's going on those platforms. I guess YouTube as well. But I mean, people are dropping stuff. It seems like the industry is kind of still far behind in terms of like getting good information out there,
like advertising or marketing or any of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like, it's you kind of have to like search for it a little bit, which is difficult because like you have to know what you're looking for to like search for stuff. And like a lot of the time you'll happen across information like randomly looking for something else, and you're like, oh shit, like friction stir welding is like jumping back on the scene all of a sudden, which is really funny because like that's been around for like a decade or more or like longer, and you're just like, but Mazak's been like pumping out friction stir welding content, and it's like, what the fuck, like what is going on here?
Right.
But which is nice because it's like this technology that's existed for a long time that is like going to solve somebody's problem if you didn't know, and like you it's not just like you can find like, how do I weld in a mill, like like you just never know.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that you kind of have to, I spend far too much time on Instagram and YouTube and whatever podcasts, like just consuming content. Yeah. And it is for that, one or two little thing that just changes the way I do stuff. Like a good example of this was Jim from HMC Knives posted these little finger sanders, just like offhand in his story. They're like a tiny little belt that goes over a little plastic thing with a spring in it and holds it so you can sand stuff. And like we use those all the time now. Like if there's like anything we need to touch up, that's a very small area, bam, these things are perfect for it. Okay. Or, talking to Easton, and he uses these EDM stones, and, we bought a bunch of those and they work fantastic now, for deburring stainless if you can't get to it in the machine, rather than using a file where you can scratch the hell out of your part. These things are soft enough that if you slip, you're probably not going to scrap your part. Nice. But it's little things like that I pick up through unfortunate hours of consuming content.
Right. It's like, it's almost a full-time. I mean, it's almost a full-time job, like keeping up with like new shit. Not really, obviously, like that's hyperbolic, but it's also very easy to get to a certain level and just stop you know? I mean, that is one of the downsides. Like, that is a reality of why I have a job in certain cases, because it's like I have people hit me up and they're like, oh, we want you to help us because like we've been doing shit the same way forever and we want to bring on new technology and whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. Because like their guys, they've worked there forever. They're just like, they've stagnated and they don't know what they don't know. And like what they're doing works, you know?
Right. Well, it's like that shop you went to and they were using, you know, a Chinese end mill and you're like, oh, let's just put like a modern cut end mill in it, you know, a Fraser or something. And like, oh, what do you know? It does better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
I would say, you know, shows like IMTS are still not, are still very relevant. I'm super stoked. We booked our hotel room, so we'll be there.
Nice.
Sunday through Thursday, I think. We'll leave Thursday. Yeah. We'll get in Sunday. We're going to do that Kern meetup again. Instant Machinist with Intolerance meetup at Kern.
It's going to be at Kern?
It's going to be at Kern again, yeah.
Not so, like Hermela found dead in a ditch? What?
I listen, I love my Hermela guys, but Dan is a fantastic, not only past guest, but friend. And the Kern guys are Actually, speaking of updates, I had Tony from Kern a week ago. We hung out and chatted about, you know, just shops in Arizona and things like that. And he gave me a good lead, introduced me to the president of Wenzel. And so we're looking at potentially getting a Wenzel CMM or at least adding them to the discussion, you know, against Hexagon and Zeiss.
They're cool. It was really interesting because like when we chatted, the last episode we did, you talked about Joseph Alonso talking about the Wenzel. And then that Monday, I was in Delaware, I think. And the shop that I'm at right now, who they're measuring all my parts on a Wenzel. And it was like, fucking, as grandma said herself, a fucking kismet, baby. It's
thanks.
So good.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. No, but I was incredibly impressed. You know, there's 0% chance I could get the president of Zeiss or Hexagon USA on the phone. And Drew from Wenzel spent, I think we talked for an hour or, you know, a little over an hour. And he just kind of finding out about my shop and our goals and, you know, my history with CMMs. And immediately, you know, responded back to my email, CCing my regional rep. They got me a quote and they were just like, hey, we look forward to seeing you at IMTS. If you have any questions before that, just let us know. And like, but like I said, my salesman Tate for Hexagon is fantastic. Like he is the reason that they're in the running at all. Actually, future episode coming up with him too.
Oh, sick.
Because he's coming to the shop in June and we're going to record another in-person one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But like I said, you know, if the biggest thing for us is service and can I get somebody on the phone when something goes wrong? And I've gone through the process with Hexagon of using their support terminal and putting in a thing and waiting and having them send me back basic ass troubleshooting. It's like, yeah, dude, I tried restarting the machine. Let's assume that I'm not an idiot.
IT crowd, have you tried turning it back off and back on again? And you're like, fuck me, dude.
So anyway, IMTS I think is a great one. Emerging industries, I would definitely say that, you know, all of this AI programming stuff is going somewhere. I don't know when it's going to be to the point where I'm using it day to day, but like being able to just offload the BS, you know, if I could even have just something that automatically helped me pick tool orientations for 5-axis, because I think that that's something that Fusion does incredibly poorly right now. That would be fantastic. So I think that that's a big one. Definitely, if you're not looking into higher end tooling, I think that you're missing out on a lot. There's been a lot of developments in tooling over the last 20 years.
I mean, like we were just having a discussion about the E-cuts, you know, like the Fraser E-cut is a monster of a tool, like, and they're crazy affordable. And it's almost to its detriment they're so affordable, you know, because people are like, wow, it's so cheap, it can't be that good. And it's like, no, they fucking rip.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're using them, Zervin's using them. John is using them, John Mahon in Tennessee, like all for like titanium and stainless and stuff. And they're just like, they just work.
Yeah. I would argue they are the best deal in tooling right now for stainless or steels, because it just eats it. And they're
right.
I pay like, low $40 for a 3/8 end mill. Like it's comparable to any other brand out there that's not, Chinese or something. And they last forever. It is so rare that I break one. I might like shear off. I've even sheared off the tips of all of the flutes in a part, and it lasted another 30 minutes in the cut to finish that part out. And then I was like, that sounded a little loud. And then I looked, I was like, oh, that's why. Okay, cool.
I think that's literally what Servin, the last time I talked to Servin on the phone, that's what he was saying. He's like, I just let that thing go until it was like, it's a bit too loud now. Maybe I should think about it. And then I think he was saying it got pretty loud, and he looked and he's like, I'm going to get my money's worth out of this thing, and just like kept going just to see, out of like sheer curiosity. It was pretty, yeah, they're dope. And to like going back to like the support, like they have, at least, I mean, I haven't dealt with anybody but Joel, but Joel is like incredibly helpful when it comes to like getting tools or like cut parameters or whatever else. Like he's helped me, he's helped a bunch of my customers, like especially if I've had customers are like, what we're doing right now doesn't work, whatever, like we'll try anything. And then it's like, hey Joel, can we get some Frasia in here? And he'll get them there, and we'll program it and try it and then see how it goes. Very, very helpful.
Yeah. And they're all super nice guys. We had Joel and then Paul, their US CEO, come by a couple months ago, and just to, say hi. They were in the area, and both of them are just super down to earth guys, and who, like, what I love about, Joel and everybody else I've interacted there is they know this stuff. Like they've worked in tooling, they've made these tools, they actually know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know any really other big emerging industries. I mean, we talk a lot about automation. I think that's not really an emerging industry anymore. It's just, when will it be adopted by more shops kind of thing?
Yeah. I don't know, like work holding is kind of like work holding more or less, like there's some cool shit out there that like, well, I don't know. I feel like there's that weird pin vise that's not really emerging that people try and like make a thing that's been around for a while,
Oh, the one that, like, what is it called? I know what you're talking about. Like the one with all the little fingers.
It's good for like castings or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like $1 bajillion, and
I will never cease to make fun of them. Don't try to sell me a pair of Jaws for $6,000. Like, get the hell out of here.
They're really good. They're really good, dude. they for sure will fuck your parts up, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I will end this podcast before I ever advertise for, I think it was Norgren or something something like that. I can't
remember. And something I want to try just to see is those fucking Tribos holders, like the shunk ones.
Heard the only person I know with them personally is Nick from P3D.
Okay.
Because Datron sells them almost exclusively with their machines.
Okay.
And Nick's, I don't know if it's his opinion of it, but the last I heard, he was like, I just want to sell them all and get Power Grip.
Interesting.
So I think that they're not that much better than Power Grip, or they're maybe not better at all. And it's just one more system to have.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy expensive, but I still want to try them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool idea. It's a super cool idea.
It's very, very interesting. Where it's like, we just you deform, it's made fucked up so that you deform it round and put your tool in, and then like fuck it back up again so it holds it. And you're like, all right, that sounds pretty cool.
I'm sure they will love that description of their tools.
Hey.
The fucked up tools that you unfuck and then refuck to hold your tools. Yeah, that sounds exactly what they want.
Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people are going to love the way I describe that in general.
Let's see. Sam R350 asked general thoughts on ISCAR Multimaster and other similar exchangeable head systems. Looking at getting one for an upcoming job.
Hold on. Hold please. Multimaster. I think that's just the screw-in head, right?
Yeah, screw-in head. I can go. I don't have any experience with the Multimasters, but I have used the OSG system, the PX system.
Okay.
They sent me a handful of tools, just for, I think, marketing purposes, like a couple years ago, and in them was a few of these. I've got a through spindle coolant ball end. I've got a 3 or 4 flute, like high-end aluminum one, and then I think one for steels, and we've used them on and off. They work great. For what they are, like they're not cheap by any means, but maybe they could be cheaper than I'm sure they would be cheaper than like a super long reach 3/4 or 1/2 inch.
Right. Yeah, because you can get that, like I have used the ISCAR Multimaster stuff. I think they all pretty much work the same. It just like it ends up being like preference and like who has more shit, I guess, that you're interested in. Like PH Horn has really good interchangeable stuff. I've used the Multimaster stuff before, and like it is nice. I mean, it's cool. Like as long as it's the same thing with like insertable drills or anything insertable, like they are a cheaper alternative as long as you don't blow the body up, which is, like, and mostly if you're in aluminum and stuff, like you're not going to blow the body up, but it's super easy if you're like if you don't catch it fast enough, if like the head goes and you're like deep in there, there's a good chance that it all goes, and then it's not actually that much cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
In the long run.
And they come in high-speed steel and carbide shanks. I think I have one of each, and it's definitely a noticeable rigidity difference.
Yeah, big time.
That high-speed one, if you're pushing it too hard at too long of a length, it really becomes a tuning fork. Like there was one job, not last year, but the year before, I think, that we had to use the high-speed steel one on, and it was a deep aluminum bore that we were cutting, and I just had to put up with it. Like I was like, this sounds horrible. Yeah. And it's like, it was 20 minutes of it. And Brad just, looks at me. I'm like, dude, I am out of options.
I'm sorry.
Just put your earplugs in extra deep and like, sorry, man, we're going to have to both suck it up for this. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think they're good. Like, I don't really have a preference on any of them. I try not to use them that much, if I'm being honest, just because it is like it introduces like another failure mode, essentially. Like you have to clamp something else to clamp something else, whereas is like just using a dedicated tool.
Right. Well, if you want to try one, see if you can get it on a guaranteed test order, because then at least if it doesn't work for you, you're not out any money.
And I guess on that note, like in most cases, just if you're curious about anything, reach out and ask, because if they're more than willing to like put their money where their mouth is in most cases, and if they're not, then fuck them. Well,
and it's usually a pretty good indication that they're not much better. If they're that much better, they're happy to give you a test body or something and make you pay for it if you like it. If they're not, they're probably not better than anybody else.
Yeah, true. And we have like a few books to read, I think.
Yeah, that's 100% on me. Still need to do Lean Sanity with Jason.
Yeah, Lean Sanity, Thinking Fast and
Alex
Slow
are going to do
Toyota Kata.
Yeah, that's a slog.
Your favorite book. Yeah, it is a slog. It's good information, but it's a fucking slog.
Yeah, and then us three are also going to do the E-Myth Revisited, because we're going to revisit the revisit.
Yeah, because the last time, I think it was episode 70 something. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we'll go over all that. I think it'll be good to have each one of our insights on it, especially.
Right.
It'll be very interesting. I'll have to go back and listen to me talking about it back then and hear the difference in opinion that I have between then and now.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, that was like three 3 years ago. I want to say it was 2020, August
Yeah.
2020 or something like that. Almost 4 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Another, I think another good one to do, which is like, I guess it's free on Audible, and like Jason just read it and Al talked about it, is like the 6 types of working genius.
I keep hearing it so much that I probably should read it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we could probably fire up one of those. It's a quick listen. Apparently it's very engaging. It's like 4.5 hours or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can get through one that is narrated well.
Yeah.
It's just Toyota Kata is wild. It feels like an
very
AI voice.
Dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Chris, what did you research this week?
This week, what did I research this week? I got mostly stuff around. I bit the bullet. Oh, I mean, bit the bullet. Like, I just did something for myself, which was I got a Steam Deck.
Oh, very interesting. I was just looking at those yesterday.
Yeah, because I'm in like the last few weeks, I've just been like spiraling into work, in like the worst way possible, and I'm trying to like do things to try and do something to like pull myself out of it. And I'm like, Jason's like, oh, I want to like been wanting to play like Helldivers, and you can play Helldivers on that thing. And I have games that I started, and I'm like, fuck, I've been listening to this video game podcast called Get Played, which is really good. I crushed all the available episodes that because their back catalog was on like Stitcher or something, and then it's gone. Like, it's just like they got it back, but they put it behind a paywall. But so whatever was available like for free, I listened to all of it, which was like 2 years or something like that, or like a year and a half. And then I paid for the Patreon. I've started it over, and I'm like, fuck, they're talking about stuff like they were talking about Baldur's Gate 3. I started playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm like, I don't really want to play that, but my PC is in Idaho. I'm not in Idaho. So, and I'm traveling so much. Even if it was here in Massachusetts, I'd only have it on the weekends. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. Like we're doing pretty good right now. Like, I'm paying bills, and like might as well like one for me kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got that, and I've just been looking, like I was looking at before it showed up, like just checking like before, I mean, making sure that it was going to do everything that I wanted it to do, or like more than what I was expecting it to do.
Which one did you get?
The OLED, the 1 terabyte OLED.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about your Stream Deck. I didn't realize.
What do you mean? No, Steam Deck.
Oh, okay. Awesome, man.
Not a Stream Deck.
No, a Steam Deck. That's even cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's for gaming.
Yeah. I wasn't putting 2 and 2 together. It didn't make any sense to me. So Stream Deck makes a lot more sense, or Steam Deck makes a lot more sense.
Why the fuck is this guy talking about gaming?
Yeah, I was like,
doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand how you can play Helldivers on it, but sure.
Dude, well, it's like those people that like speed run Elden Ring with the fucking Guitar Hero controller or whatever. You're like, what? How are you doing that?
I watched one clip from a guy who had his jellyfish playing it, and so he had overlaid a camera on his goldfish tank. And like all of the commands were in a grid across the camera, and so whenever the goldfish would cross into another one, he would do it, and like the goldfish was slowly but surely like beating bosses and stuff.
That is so funny.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. Steam Decks have looked very cool to me for a while.
Yeah, so I was like, it's a little pricey, but I was like, fuck it,
You got to have some fun at some point.
Yeah.
It can't be all work. You will burn yourself out.
Oh, I was like feeling it so hard. I was like, oh my God. Like, just going back to the hotel, like waking up like at 6 and like doing a little bit of work, and then going to the customer and working, and then coming back and like working on something else. And it's like, I found myself in that loop where I'm like, oh, I'm getting like, I'm working a lot and slowly getting less and less productive. And this is a fucking problem. So just trying to like get out of that loop as quickly as possible, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely been there the last few weeks.
Yeah.
It's been a slog, and like I think it has to do when things happen out of my control as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a few jobs that were all delayed and were all late because of things out of my control. Like I think I told you that one of them was that 316 sheet that I had to buy. It was like a 3/4 inch sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Bought it from McMaster. It came in shear cut so bad and like bananaed so bad that I was removing material from both sides to make it 3/16.
Yeah.
And it cleaned up, but I had like kind of warped it down with screws onto my fixture so bad that when the parts came off, they were, crescents.
Yeah. Like, that's not going to fly.
No, it wasn't. And so then I contacted McMaster. I was like, oh, you've got this, what do they call it? Project 70 or something. It's like easy to machine 316.
Mm-hmm.
Is this saw cut instead of shear cut because of this problem? And I go, oh yeah, it's saw cut. It'll be fine. So cool. I order 7 pieces, shows up the next day, still shear cut, probably worse than the first. Like an honest to God 1/8 inch of bow in a 6x12 inch piece.
That is absurd.
Yeah. And so then I had to buy it from TCI, who does the double disc grinding stuff. And I paid $450 for next day shipping. Didn't hear anything. Like I ordered it on a Wednesday. Didn't hear anything from them Thursday. Called them Friday. Was like, hey, when is this going to ship? And they're like, oh, it'll ship today. It'll be there Monday. It's cool.
Like, I was expecting this to be here today at worst.
And they're in California, and I ordered it early in the morning on Wednesday. So it wasn't, there wasn't this time difference excuse that they could use.
Right. They're like, well, we're going to ship it overnight. Doesn't mean we're going to get to it overnight, you fool.
Which would have been fine if they had just emailed me and been upfront and said, hey, this takes 2 days to cut. But it said on their website, everything in stock will ship same day. And the real irony is that they had like a banner at the top of their website that's that, oh, for first time customers, use code prove it in your thing for 10% off because we really want to prove our quality to you.
Oh, damn.
It's like, well, yeah, all right. You proved something to me. Like, yeah, that was incredibly frustrating, but it led to me to like this spiral of like, okay, that's far behind. So I've got one machine just waiting for that material. And then I had another thing happen. I can't remember what it was. I don't remember if it was tooling showing up late or something. I don't know. And so it just killed my productivity, and burnout is real for sure.
Yeah. Hate it.
Yeah. This week I was researching a fair bit of stuff podcast related. So I added a bunch of sound deadening to the podcast studio at the show or the shop. Bought basically duplicates of all of my podcast stuff because the whole idea was like, oh, I'm going to podcast from the shop permanently and just not do it at home anymore. Turns out sometimes, it's a Sunday like right now, and I'm not going to drive into the shop to record and then come home.
Right.
So it makes sense to just have duplicates. And
that nice SM7B right now. At home.
So,
ooh, baby,
I kind of lucked out in the fact that my mic interface and preamp just happened to go on sale like the day I figured out that this was something I wanted to do. And then I'm starting to decide if I want to start doing video along with the audio. So audience, let me know if that's something you're interested in. I know there's some podcasts out there that are video as well. Chris and I are usually fairly well set up for video.
Yeah.
It would just mean adding what I kind of want to do is build out like a Pelican case or something where the mic and the camera would be built into it, and you would just fold them out, and it would have a USB hub built into it, and you would just plug it into your computer and everything would be ready to go.
That sounds like a good procrastination project, when you're just like, when you're like, fuck, I don't want to make these parts. You just fire up the Pelican case.
Yeah. I have been called productively procrastinating quite a few times this week. So you're checking the right box.
I'm the same way, dude. Like I have stuff to do, but I'm at home and I'm like, maybe I won't work and I'll like clean a lot, you know, and organize like my magic cards or whatever.
Yeah. So that's something I've been thinking about. Please reach out. Let me know if video is something you're interested in. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe just your and my episodes will be video or something.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be easy. Yeah, because I pretty much have like my setup is 100% mobile. You know,
right.
I'm always, it just come wherever I go, it goes.
Yeah, and I'm sure I can find some tools that'll make the editing easier than it was last time I tried to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I also tried like 2 years almost. So like the AI tools have been,
they're getting better. And speaking of AI, I tried out the new GPT-4 Aught.
Yeah.
Which is their new model that's like super conversational and can search the web, and it was pretty cool. Honestly,
nice.
I was impressed.
Yeah,
it was pretty neat. You know, asking like, oh, where should I go to eat today? And it's like, oh, well, TripAdvisor says that these places are really good around you, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you can ask it follow-up questions very easily, and it doesn't seem to lose its track as easy as past versions.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Like I was watching an interview with Sam Altman. He said that like they haven't released the audio version yet where you can speak to it and it speaks back to you kind of like a digital assistant, but he has it obviously internally. And he said that the best thing about it so far has been when he's working, you know, on a memo or a paper or an email, he just leaves it open on his desk. And rather than navigating to another window to look something up, he just asks it while he's doing his work. And it allows him to remain much more focused on what he's doing.
I like that.
I do too. I was like, that sounds like a very good use case for AI.
Right. You can very easily see the detractors immediately being like, I don't want AI listening to me all the time, but whatever.
Well, and I found out, I was looking at plans because I was like, oh, this actually could be useful for me if I paid for it. And if you buy one of their team subscriptions where it's $25 or $30 per person per month, they at least say that they do not train or record your data.
Oh,
that your team data is your team data, and it's 100% yours. So
love that.
Yeah,
that's not that expensive. That's very reasonable.
Right. Yeah, and if I could use it for the podcast, you know, you can feed it files and stuff. If I could feed it podcasts and say, you know, write a description and write fully transcribe and whatever, my guess is it would transcribe better than the apps I use currently. Like they do a pretty good job, but they stumble over some stuff occasionally. And, you know, we're speaking fairly clear English and they still stumble, which is always funny. So we'll see. That was another thing, though, that I thought was pretty interesting this week. I'm going to skip question 2 on to question 3. Give me some wins from this week.
I think the wins are hiring people, you know, just kind of like recognizing and like acting on realizing that like I should probably think more about like, I mean, so I got 2 wins. One is like just making good parts is nice after like kind of like and getting out all that shit dialed in is like cool, and like selling is nice. I've like sold quite a bit over the last 2 weeks and have like money like real money for the first time in like a while, kind of consistently flowing in, which is sick. And then just kind of like recognizing that it's time to like, if I'm going to hire somebody, that I should start with admin stuff to clear my plate a little bit more. And I had a contractor for that before, you know, which was good, but it's just different, you know, like she did a good job, but also like the amount that I like, it was the amount that I was paying her relative to like what she did was proportionate, but I needed more than that,
Right.
And I wasn't in a position to pay for that at the time because like I had 3 full-time engineers that I was paying for, and I shouldn't have been paying for one of them. I could have probably hired 2 admin people for the price of one of those engineers. That would have ultimately been like a better use of resources. So like realizing, okay, we're on a growth track right now. What does that look like? Which is an engineer, but I should hire somebody before the engineer. And build this thing for real. Because if it's like right now, it's just me like fucking shooting from the hip and like just like full cowboy.
Right. Yeah. You've got me thinking that I might want to consider that as our first hire as well. Even just a part-time someone who wants to like be in manufacturing, but doesn't have the skills to program yet. Like that might be, if I could have somebody learn to quote very well, and then answer emails and deal with that, it might actually be a good part-time job for someone.
Yeah, it seems like it almost seems like this is something that I was discussing with Hirsch, which is like, it is technically like a non-value add hire in terms of like him not being a like a revenue source and doesn't generate any revenue, but it indirectly does because it just frees me up to be like to focus, and that's like so huge. And that's like, I don't know, I guess it's like eliminating waste from my life.
Right. Well, and it's not value add, but it allows you to add more value. It gives you that time back to make more value for your company.
Right. And it's fascinating. It's like you kind of always fall like, oh, I need somebody to be as productive as possible as soon as they get hired. But like that's a lot. Like it's never going to happen. You know, no one is ever going to be as productive as you want them to be, and you're going to spend more time. Like, I mean, I've talked to like Joe Rogan Buck and like James Servin or whatever, and like myself, and like my experience is like you hire people, even if they're very, very competent, like they aren't competent at working in your business. They are competent
it's still
at
3 to 6 months minimum, I think, until they're up to the speed you want them to be.
Unless you're fucking Kevin Strom, who's like first week at Amazon, like programming parts in Hypermill and like crushing. Yeah. I got a text from Seth like 3 days in, and it's like he's already programmed his first full part and is like and is generating code, and it's like, all right, my bad.
That is awesome. Yeah. Congrats, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. Congrats to Kevin. Yeah, I'm super excited that worked out.
That is super cool. I would say wins from this week. I'm feeling very strong, starting to feel very strong with tabbing parts off.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Yeah, I think it was, I want to say it was like John Saunders in a video years ago, or maybe it was on their podcast or something, that he was talking about doing 3 tabs in a triangle. And doing that has been so good. Like I can get such thin tabs on aluminum parts, and a thou or 2 thou thick, and it's still totally rigid. Yeah. And then I can just flat sand that face real quick and boom, part's done, one and done. And there is no more fun feeling than being like, oh, this part that would have been 3, 4, 5 ops in a Speedio is now done.
Yeah.
So
you're like, sick.
Yeah.
That's how that bad girl's printing money.
Right. I'm not by any means saying I'm an expert. I am feeling much more confident. I can look at many parts now and know that they're going to work, which is a significant difference than a couple weeks ago. So, I think that's the biggest win, is just starting to feel more at home on the Hermla, making parts on it. Shop's starting to come together. I think we're going to do our open house pretty soon here.
Ooh, let's go.
Yeah. Otherwise, business as usual, man.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making the time on a Sunday to chat and catch up, man. It's always good.
Yeah.
Thanks to new Patreon members, Al and Kyle. You guys make this show possible. Let me buy duplicates of all my stuff so I can podcast from anywhere. Thank you all for listening, and I will be back next week.